All right. Very excited to be recording today. It's actually my birthday. I didn't say that. John and Rose were at the top, but yeah, recording a pod on the birthday. It's a great time, great way to spend it. Today we've got John and Rose from a new awesome agency partner of ours, Fat Earth, joining us to talk all things lifecycle marketing and retention. Hopefully, we'll get into a little holiday preview as well if we have time. But really appreciate you both giving us an hour here and excited to dive in with you. Maybe we could just do super quick intros. So name, role, and where you're dialing in from today.
Cool. Yeah, before we get started, a quick shout out. So Noah, happy birthday. We got a young man on our team, Antonio Martinez. Shout out to Antonio if you're listening. Happy birthday. He's turning 28 today. So we're really
It's a
proud.
great birthday.
Yeah, it's a good birthday. I just recently realized I've got a shared birthday with the CEO of one of our clients from Graza, which was I can tell the story of how we discovered it one day. It was over a lot of wine and really good food, but it was an exciting discovery when we realized we're the same day. But anyway, before I go too far, Noah, thanks for having us. I'm John Gross, founder and CEO of Fatter Media. I'm calling in from Austin, Texas. We're headquartered here. Handful of our employees are here. We are a fully remote company. And Rose, I'll hand it over to you.
Happy birthday, Noah.
Thanks.
Thanks for inviting us here today. I'm Rose Eppensteiner. I am the Senior Manager of Lifecycle Marketing at Fat Earth, and I am calling in from Cape Town, South Africa today.
Wow. I think last time we talked, weren't you like in Mexico or something?
Yes, I live full time in Mexico. I'm just on an adventure right now. So here on the other side of the world for a month or so.
Wow, very cool. Okay, this next question, appreciate the intros, might lead into some of your travels, Rose, but keeping it personal at the top, we always like to ask one or two things that you're excited about in your personal lives right now. Whoever wants to start.
Yes, mine is very related to my location. So I am signing off in a few days to do a big hike in Tanzania. I'm going to climb Mount Kilimanjaro. So that's something I'm very excited about coming up. And I hope to be able to report back a successful summit in about T minus 10 to 12 days.
Oh my gosh. Is that how long it takes to do the hike? 10 to 12 days?
It is a 7 day hike. I travel there, have a few days to land and settle, and then we're up the mountain 1 week without showering. So this
Oh,
is a very clean version of me that you all are seeing that my fellow hikers will not.
wow, that is wild. Will this be the biggest hike you've ever done?
Yes, it's biggest and highest.
Okay.
Yeah. So a
Um,
big adventure ahead of me.
I'm always also curious, like so it's a 7 day hike. Is it like there are stopping points where there's like pre-built things to sleep in, or are you like, is your tent like
Define pre-built.
okay. Yeah.
The my understanding is that no, it's going to be very much a camping situation. So we'll be in tents, and the leader told us do not expect to get a good night's sleep on the adventure. So my expectations are set. I'm like, okay, I'm not going to be sleeping well. I'll be kind of in the middle of nowhere, but with good company. So really what can go wrong?
Yes. Right.
Don't answer. That's a rhetorical question.
Amazing. Well, good luck. That is super exciting. Can't
Thank
wait to
you.
talk about it. John, over to you. What are you
Yeah, I
excited?
think I'm gonna leverage Rose for my personal
No
update.
problem.
First of all, living vicariously through her. I typically do. We've got a really great remote culture, and we encourage folks to, take advantage of the way that work is getting done these days. And Rose is a good example of somebody who works really hard, gets a lot of really great work done, runs a very high performing, effective team, but also, knows when to let loose and when to have some fun. I think it's really important, and it's a big part of our culture. So frankly, like getting to see her, getting to see other people on our team take advantage of these types of opportunities in a way that is healthy, in a way that is structured, and in a way that, allows us, I think, to be a more sustainable business, to not have a group of employees who are always on the cusp of burnout. I'm sure, we're not perfect. We make mistakes, but we're trying to strive for a setup and a situation that is a little bit better. And I think that's exciting. And so, actually, I'm very proud to see Rose going and taking this trip. And then I think what I'm excited about is I'm going to get some really good sleep. Rose will be on the floor on some sticks or whatever. I've got a great mattress and I sleep really well. So I'll be not taking those for granted. I think Rose has reminded me, to appreciate the little things like a good night's sleep.
Very cool. Okay, those are both great ones. Do you want to shout out your mattress? What kind of mattress do you have?
Man, so someone gave me some good advice one time to invest well into anything that's between you and the ground. So tires, shoes, mattress. And whenever went to grad school, so I kind of had like a long period of time where I had like really kind of cheap, dinky mattresses that were easy to move around. And when I got married and got a house, we got a nice mattress. We have a Temper. Can't remember the exact model, Luxe Pure Ultra Soft. It's amazing. The one thing that's like the downside is that now when I travel, like I miss my bed. It
Yeah.
used to be the other way around. I would go, oh man, this hotel is amazing. It's way better than my setup. But now it's kind of opposite. And so it kind of plays a little bit of a mental trick on you. So but yeah, I love it.
Love that. That's awesome. I love that invest well in anything that's between you and the ground. I've never heard that, but it makes a lot of sense. I feel like I'm still in the phase of life where even though my birthday 31 today, so I'm probably too old, but I just spent a couple nights sleeping on a buddy's couch. I can sleep anywhere. It's not a big thing to me.
Yeah.
But I'm sure that it's great. My bed at home is pretty nice. Mariah, we haven't seen you in a while either, so I'm kicking it to you. What are you excited about?
I'm excited. Well, hopefully I'll get now that we're just talking about sleep. I love my mattress as well, and I've been in New Jersey for the better part of the past month. So, and sleep hasn't been well because just the more people you have, like parents getting up at 5 a.m. I grew up in New Jersey but live in Indy now. So I'm also excited to get better sleep where I'm not hearing majority of the household getting up at 5 a.m. But other than that, I have a wedding this weekend that I'm going to
Nice.
in Cleveland that I'm very excited about. It's good to be back here. No, I didn't know it was your birthday either. So way to
Yeah.
drop that
Yeah.
in our podcast, but I'll be sending in our
I'm
internal
like
stuff.
not a big birthday guy at all. And we had our team meeting yesterday and we always ask the same question. And I said that it was my birthday. And they were like, you're supposed to tell us those things. Like I'd prefer not to. Cool.
So then maybe I won't send it in our,
Yeah.
our Slack. I'll eat those words that I just said.
Yeah.
But
excited to get you back in Indy next week after the wedding.
Yeah.
All right, cool. Appreciate the personal updates, everyone. I'd love to maybe start with John, given you're the founder of Fat Earth, on like your background, what made you start Fat Earth, and what the agency initially started to focus on, as well as like where you are today, and
Yeah.
maybe it'll bring us up to Rose.
Yeah, no, I mean, yeah, I'm trying to figure out how long I want to talk here. An interesting background. I think, I started my career in environmental science. I got recruited pretty heavily out of college. I got a master's degree at the University of Georgia in environmental science and went to work for this big environmental engineering firm based out of Baton Rouge, Houston. And ultimately how I ended up making my way to Austin was through that company. And, I got really deep into client services. And so we were essentially, if a big oil and gas company wanted to get a permit, for example, they would come to us with this unstructured problem. Hey, we want to accomplish this in this particular area. How do we do that? And it was my job to put the project plan together, put the strategy together, and then make sure that it was all executed very well for the client. And then, of course, letting the client know exactly what's going on every step of the way, making them feel comfortable and letting them really understand the bigger picture. Cut to, I got this opportunity. I didn't really love the job in some ways. I was really good at kind of like the business development and the marketing side of it, and also the customer service side. And I quickly realized that at our company, I didn't think anyone really understood what the company's limiting factors were. And something you heard me talk about a lot. We'll probably go through that as it relates to marketing. And I quickly realized like what we were bad at was marketing and sales and customer service. But all these people who were technical experts, who were crazy, brilliant scientists, but like they didn't have enough work to do. Right.
Yeah.
So I quickly realized that, there's a big gap there, particularly in these types of industries. I ended up getting the opportunity to go travel, which is coincidentally how I met Rose. And I realized at that point, I kind of want to make a little bit of a career change. Started looking for jobs I could take on the road with me. I was going to know I was going to be traveling for about a year. I really just wanted to make ends meet. So I started to see these, jobs for or job openings for remote work that were specifically in the marketing industry. I had technically had no marketing experience. I was applying for these very junior, very entry level jobs. And in 2017, 2016, 2017, remote work wasn't as widely available as it is now. It's totally different. It wasn't that long ago, but it's way different. And so I couldn't get any callbacks. I couldn't figure out why can I not get I had a master's degree. I consider myself a hard worker, relatively intelligent, but I couldn't get my foot in the door. So I just decided, like, screw this. I'm going to teach myself how to do it. And so I started taking classes on Google Ads. I started just absorbing everything I could. I actually convinced that previous company to send me to some marketing training. And then, this may surprise you, I actually started taking ads out for myself on Craigslist, saying that, hey, look, I can do your Google Ads. And that snowballed. I actually started getting some calls, started having some sales meetings, started landing some clients. An agency friend of mine heard what I was doing and was like just kind of so impressed that I was being scrappy and just going for it, that they offered me a job. I came in, I ended up being one of the more productive, account managers, really just threw myself into all things marketing. And again, really realized that agency, the gap was in strategy, customer service, hospitality. It wasn't that there weren't people on the team that didn't know Google Ads. It was kind of this bigger picture thinking that more sophisticated brands really need, right? You have to have great execution, but it's kind of this bigger picture thing that I think is generally missing in the market. And so I ended up working with that agency for a while, went out on my own, was just kind of consulting by myself and just kind of being a freelance consultant. And then I decided one day I really wanted to make a real go of it. Ended up reaching out to Rose and a couple of other people, got them on part-time. We were just kind of operating this book of business. And then we got really serious. We formalized the company and really, started building process, started building procedure. And, honestly, the rest is kind of history. Had a couple of really good experiences. Got introduced to Magic Spoon pretty early. We were their primary media buying team for their first, I think 24 months. Yeah, Outer Isle, Our Place Cookware. And so we had a few companies early on that really skyrocketed our growth. And so, formally, early on, we were really just focused on media buying. That was my expertise at the time. I'd come up through Facebook and Google. But I think even in early 2019, my thesis was that we were going to be an at-risk business if we only focused on media buying, particularly through Meta, particularly through Google. iOS 14 comes around, made me look pretty smart. But I think, what that caused us to do was to build and invest in additional channels, specifically lifecycle marketing, specifically creative, and some around CRO and website. So we can talk about that way. We don't do too much of that. And so what we wanted to build was a more diversified company that could give our clients a small suite of really core expertise to allow them to grow their business and actually not only de-risk our business, but de-risk their businesses. And so everything that we do at Fat Earth is really revolves around this framework of find, win, grow. You gotta improve your traffic sources. How are we actually getting people to your website? You've got to understand how to get them to convert. And then you've got to hand them over to Rose and her team and let them improve the lifetime value. And so we have a few core services that really aim at fixing those three problems for our clients. And then what really separates us is that we have invested very heavily in our creative team. So whether you're improving your traffic, improving your conversion rate, or working on life cycle, everything across that entire touch point or across that entire funnel is very well thought out. And the creative execution against that strategy is, very high end. And so for us, that's really one of our, I know you maybe want to talk about things that differentiate us. I think that's really key, is the holistic approach to strategy and the fact that, like, creative is this, pretty impressive wrapper on everything that we do. So right now we're kind of evenly split 30% across paid media, lifecycle, and creative. And that's really comfortable for us. And it gives our clients access to, a lot of firepower across their entire marketing stack.
Wow. Lots to unpack.
A lot of stuff. Sorry. Yeah.
No, given the story, I think you tied a bow on it really nicely, but holy cow, what a journey. Okay. First question, and Rose, I'm going to come to you in a second, but um, I want to stay on John for a couple things real quick. Environmental science master's degree to paid ads. I'm curious, like, obviously that's a big jump overall, but why did you, you knew that you liked marketing. Why was it paid ads that like drew the most attention
Yeah.
from the get-go?
I mean, honestly, the answer is very easy. At first, it was a means to an end. I saw this opportunity I wanted to do this thing. I wanted to accomplish this goal, have this experience, and Google Ads were a way that I could do that. It allowed me to have this flexible lifestyle, and I could wrap my head around it. It was at first, I thought it was very technical. My environmental science background was very technical. It had a lot of statistics, a lot of biology, a lot of chemistry, a lot of math. And so for me to go from that to Google Ads actually was like relatively easy. And then again, like but the point, like why I stuck with it and why I think I ended up being so good at it is because I realized that the keystrokes from an environmental science perspective of me running these massive projects for Shell, Exxon, Chevron, like what those folks really wanted was to feel comfortable in the approach and the progress and in the charisma, right? They weren't so worried about the nth degree of detail on what type of soil composition that particular plot of land had. They wanted to know, like, are we on track? Right? It's almost that simple. And I think like once I understood the basics of the platform, I could actually add more value than the majority of my peers by going a bit upstream. Does that make sense?
Yeah, absolutely. I also think that like, you know, I mean, just using Maloma as an example, we measure attribution in, in through integrations, basically. Like we until recent very soon we'll have our own attribution model, which will be a huge unlock for us. But because we measure attribution in Klaviyo or in Shopify or in Google Analytics, like we can't clearly show that progress sometimes, or it's like not as easy for merchants to digest. And I think on the paid ad side, Google Ads, like there's a pretty clean dashboard that shows you what you're spending and what you're making, right? And you can look at that daily, weekly, monthly. And so I think, would you agree that like, because it's so clear to see that progress you're talking clients need and want for validation, that was part of the reason?
Yeah, for sure. I mean, that made it relatively easy to sell the story, to show those results. I, you know, I think another big reason that I ended up getting so excited about this new opportunity was like because of the environmental science background. I actually realized with the help of another friend and early business partner, I could actually make a bigger impact on what I was trying to do by having a marketing agency. And so one thing I left out that is actually probably the most important part of the whole genesis of Fat Earth is like we were set up exclusively to work with mission driven brands. And so for me, like it was this interesting kind of closing the loop to say, I've got this background. I was actually kind of unhappy with the work I was doing because at the end of the day, my job was actually just to keep Shell and Exxon from getting in trouble. I wasn't actually making a positive impact. And I realized that there was all these brands, particularly in early 2016, 2017, that were starting to really adopt these mission-driven for-purpose approaches, right? B Corp was becoming important, 1% for the planet, those types of things. And very early, we quickly aligned with a very great and core set of customers who that was their entire reason for existing, whether it was environmental science, whether it was educating kids in historically undervalued areas or historically underinvested areas, and so we worked with all manner of brands that were set out originally to do some good. And oh, by the way, how we're going to do that good is through world-class digital marketing. And that's always been a hypothesis is like, if you come to Fat Earth and you have a mission, then we're actually not only going to help your bottom line, this is what we say internally, we're going to elevate the baseline of consumer behavior because we think that if we put our time and attention behind product A instead of behind product B, we're going to give product A a better chance to win. And if that product is doing things in a better way, well, then we're doing some good, right? If a consumer decides to purchase your product because we've properly articulated the value of the reusable packaging or the lack of plastic or the fact that you're donating back to school systems, then we've made a real impact. And what we've seen is that over the course of, I'm not saying we've done this, but over the course of us paying attention to it, we've seen better supply chains, right? People focusing on things that are taken care of. I'm just going to use a specific example, like the women that work at one of the clothing shops in Guatemala, one of our clients, like, they're well taken care of. That only works if that particular client is selling enough product. We're also seeing that venture capital firms are taking that really seriously. Consumers want brands to do things in a better way. Now, I think we're also in an interesting time period where, like, there's maybe a lot of greenwashing going on. We could do a whole podcast just on that. But, I think it's important for agencies to kind of, pick and choose who they want to work for, to stand for something. And what's interesting for us, and I think Rose can attest, is like, we've ended up relating to our clients on something beyond just performance, beyond just bottom line, and it's created these really fantastic and amazing relationships. And I think it's been one of the key differentiators for us and why we've been able to experience, the level of success that we have.
Awesome. Love that. We just had EcoCart on the
podcast. Cool. Yeah. We're
chatting
with them right now. Yeah.
You work with them as well. Okay. Last question for you, John, and then I want to go over to Rose. So you started with the Craigslist ad thing for paid media, which is hilarious to me. And you got some clients. I imagine that they weren't the Magic Spoons of the world. Maybe I'm wrong, but like, how did you end up in the Shopify ecosystem after starting with just these like ad hoc projects on?
Yeah. So, I mean, first of all, like, go back to the Craigslist thing. Like, that's become like almost like a mini legend in a way within our team. It's particularly when it comes to hiring. If someone's out there listening that ever wants a job at Fat Earth, this is going to be a huge hint. We really, really index on people that just figure shit out, right? Like, another thing that I say all the time, the half-life of a media buyer is like 6 months. And so, like, that Craigslist strategy would not work today.
Yeah.
It wouldn't make any sense. It would get us in front of the wrong group of people. I don't even know how, I haven't used Craigslist probably since, but the point is, like, because of the nature of the work that we do, regardless of whether you're in creative, lifecycle, paid media, you need to be the type of person who is willing to always be at the front line of what's working, and be the type of person who's gonna, when you hit a roadblock, you're gonna go, well, I'm gonna go find this answer. I'm gonna figure out a way to get through that. And I think, like, that little story just kind of sums up what makes a good agency good and a bad agency bad. If you're doing the things that are able to be explained, then you're 6 months behind. Like, the majority of the work that we do that is really good is in front of the Twitter gurus, or in front of what's happening on LinkedIn, because once it's there, it's kind of like old hat. I don't know. So anyway, that's not really what you asked me. But I think it's really important. What was the question?
No, I love where you took it. I think.
Oh, how do we get into Shopify? So that's really like how I got my start, right? And I think I got a few clients I was working, and really what that did was got me some attention for some other agencies. And my first real job after I did the Craigslist adventure was with an agency, and that agency had clients that were in the Shopify ecosystem. So that's really where I got the more formal training, got out of just doing it by myself, got exposure to running clients. And that, I was running 7 or 8 accounts, doing all their media buying, Facebook, Google. At that time, like, we were doing a little bit of everything. It was a really small shop. And so I was helping brands with back-end code. I was helping brands stand up Shopify websites. I was helping hire developers off of Upwork and places like that, to, kind of doing a little bit of everything. And it was a really good marketing education. So that was essentially how that transition was facilitated.
Got it. Okay. Yeah. I feel like if you're in, paid ads and then subsequently lifecycle marketing, you're going to end up around, especially around that time, 2017, 2018, Shopify's, taking storm, and makes a whole lot of sense.
For sure.
Okay, Rose, John hinted at the how you met story, and I want to first ask about that. And then get to what made you decide to join him from whatever you were doing before that meeting. Or the call, I should say.
We have a pretty epic origin story, I would say, that rivals the beginning of many people's friendships. I'll let you all decide that, but The way that we met is through travel, as he alluded to. I worked for a company called Remote Year, which put together work and travel programs for folks who had remote jobs. John went on a remote year program with his now wife, and I interviewed them to determine if they were qualified to come on the program. So I won't tell you what those qualification metrics were, but after about, let's say, 45 seconds in the conversation, I was like, these folks are epic. They can come on this trip. They can come on this program. So yeah, you could tell it was a really very rigorous process. As John went through that process that he described of like, how am I going to find a remote role to ensure that I can do this program. While he was doing that, I was traveling the world with this company. Eventually, him and his wife made it work, and we met for the first time. Did we meet at the beginning of your program, John, in Croatia?
Yeah,
Was it?
Croatia. Yep.
Yeah, yeah. So a virtual friendship turned into real life friendship starting in Croatia. And actually, as I said, I'm in Cape Town now. We also were in Cape Town together. And that was just, yeah, the beginning of very epic times, adventures all over the world. And I think also at the time when we started that friendship, there must have been some telepathy connection because I had made the decision in my mind that I was ready to move on from my adventures at Remote Year after about 3.5 years there, but I hadn't told anyone yet. And a few days after I mentally made the decision, I get a text from John, and he was like, "So are you ready to come join me at the marketing agency I'm starting?" And we had previously talked about how one day it would be cool to work together. And we would kind of joke about it, like knowing that maybe it was a possibility in the back of our minds. But when that happened, I was like, this is definitely the sign and the timing. And I was like, well, you're the first to know, but yes, thank you for the offer. I accept. My current job doesn't know it yet. I'm gonna let them know, give them some time to process, but let's make it happen. So that was in around the summer of 2019. And towards the end of 2019 is when we officially started working together. Fun fact, I had never heard of Klaviyo, but John trusted me and I trusted him. And honestly, that is, I think, the most important beginning to have, or that strong foundation, right? And I tell people that all the time when they kind of ask about my work history and how I've evolved from getting my degree in journalism, then becoming a high school teacher, then working for a travel company, and now running the life cycle part of an agency. That is something I always mention, that from the beginning, like as a person, I trusted and still do trust John so much as a human. And that is just the only thing really that mattered to me when he was like, "Do you want to come help me figure out this marketing agency thing?" I was like, "Yeah, I trust you and you trust me because you asked me, so let's do it."
Yeah.
And yeah, I mean, I can't believe it's been this long that we've been doing it together, but as you can see, it's been an adventure from the beginning, literally.
Literally an adventure. Thank God
Yeah.
Jack didn't blow that interview. Or else
Yeah,
it
would
would
have
have
been
been
really
Right? Could have
bad.
been disastrous.
Totally different paths if we had.
unbelievable. Okay, so I'm curious how did you end up in the life cycle marketing role? Like, was there anything in your past experience that made you feel confident in stepping into it? And I'd also love to just go on to the next sort of topic and talk about how you balance retention with life cycle marketing and how you think about those two things sort of being intertwined in your daily activities.
Yeah. So I think at the beginning it was quite natural, right? Because John said his experience was more on the paid side. And at the time when we were determining if we wanted to venture into the life cycle side of marketing as well, we had clients that were asking about it. So we thought it would be a natural offering to make available to those existing clients and kind of dip our toe in there. So it made
Really
a little
quick,
bit more sense.
really
Yeah.
quick, Rose, just to clarify, like what would be a normal ask from a merchant? So you're running, paid ads, and they're like, "Can you do life cycle marketing?" I'm sure they didn't use that. They were probably like, "Can you help us now grow this business? Like what were they really asking for?
Well, sorry, Rose, not to jump in, but like it actually a lot of times would go the other way around.
Oh, interesting.
We were pretty assertive early on to let our clients know where we thought they were missing out on revenue, right?
Yeah.
Think back to when we were talking about like this was a time when media buying was relatively straightforward. You could get massive ROAS if you had decent creative, decent website, and people weren't really focusing on lifecycle marketing as much as they are now.
Yeah.
And so we were, for a lot of our clients, like we were going in and saying, look, you're actually not hitting your revenue goals, not because your cost per acquisition isn't good enough. It's because, or your traffic isn't good enough. It is that website. It is that lifecycle marketing piece. So they would ask us for help, but a lot of times we were like presenting to them, hey, what if you took this seriously? Here are the numbers. Like, what if we could actually improve this metric, this metric, this metric? So it was sometimes both ways, but a lot of times it was us going in and saying, and the same thing for creative. Like that's why we have a creative team. I got tired of running ads for brands who didn't have good creative. So we said, well, we'll just do creative, right? And it ended up evolving into something that's very cohesive and holistic.
Yeah. Yeah. Interesting. Okay. So you kind of, but your expertise on the paid ad side is what led you to realize like maybe where there were gaps there, but also like how the life cycle part can fuel, right, more LTV from those customers that you're paying to acquire.
Yeah, I mean, again, like going back to, I think you can kind of pick out from all my conversations. Like, I'm personally not the type of person that wants to be a single specialist. Like, I got into this through paid media. That was my expertise. I think I was as good of a media buyer as pretty much, really anybody doing it. But I also, like, at all times was focused on bigger picture ideas from our brands. And sometimes, like, they would hire us for Facebook. We would double their ROAS, but the way that we would do it was through a website improvement.
Mm.
In 2019, like that wasn't something a lot of people were. A lot of people were listening to this going, I was doing it in 2019. Of course you were, but a lot of brands that we were talking to weren't thinking about it. Yeah. So it was a big unlock for a lot of our clients is to say, maybe you don't actually have a Facebook problem, or maybe you have a Facebook problem among many. And that was for a lot of our clients a big eye-opening kind of statement at that time, because a lot of these D2C brands just launched off of the back of thinking that Facebook in and of itself was a business model. And we were coming in and saying, maybe it is for you, but what if we also had a good website and we also tripled your LTV?
Right. What if, conversions through like clicks to conversions increase 10%? What does that mean? Because
exactly.
Improvements. And we talk about this exact thing a lot, which is where I wanted to go. The retention to, or basically CAC to LTV, right? In today's day and age, and especially around the holidays, which are coming up, brands are never going to spend more money than they ever have before on Facebook and Google and paid media overall. But I think that a lot of times brands make the mistake, and this is sort of alluding to what John just talked about, of spending so much time on the acquisition side that retention tactics go by the wayside. And now you've spent, it doesn't matter, just picking a number, you spent $100 to acquire a customer, and on their first purchase, they only returned 50, right? Because that's your AOV. Now you have to get them back for a second purchase. And if you have dropped the ball on your retention marketing tactics and you never get them back, you're just 50% CAC to LTV. Like it's a horrible, horrible ratio with media buying costs going so high up now. Keywords being impossible. Like it's literally mission critical. Like it's an existential crisis if brands can't convert customers back to buy again, because most brands today aren't first purchase profitable anymore. So Rose, from your perspective, is that something you take into consideration, and sort of how do you think about that?
Yeah, it's something that we talk about with all of our clients, and what we think is so crucial and so important is something that, John was alluding to before, is we're not thinking about these touch points as kind of singular one-off campaigns that we're sending out. We want to be able to tell a story. We really want to be able to show value. And the way that we're going to be able to do that is if we have that clear story from our clients, right? And if we all have that kind of streamlined connection, right, between what is the story that we're telling in Facebook, Instagram, TikTok ads? How are we relaying that via email and text message campaigns? Is that connected to what's going on in the website, any PR pieces that are being sent out by the client? And having that cohesion there is critical for us. And this question of like first time purchase to second time purchase to third time purchase and what kind of that, that whole customer journey looks like. I mean, that's like what the core of life cycle marketing is, right? Which is why we talk about life cycle marketing and really say, that's the service that we're providing to our customers. Like, how are we making a positive impact on the site visitors, customers, subscribers, to influence their behavior as they move through all of those touch points? We're not just thinking of a singular one, we're thinking of it as kind of this whole ecosystem, which is, I think why it obviously connects to this concept of the life cycle of the customer, of the subscriber, of the site visitor. So we want to make sure that we're providing, like I said, that positive influence to move them through the journey, and that it's not just siloed into these single touch points, that we're able to zoom out and see how all of that is working together on all the different channels that our clients are using.
Yeah, makes total sense. I think that goes back to what John was talking about, like the ethos of find, win, grow. And it sounds to me like, telling a unique advantage, or sort of what sets Fat Earth apart in your thinking, is like thinking about that as a cohesive experience, and not just, we're just focusing on bringing these customers into the top of funnel. You're actually thinking about like top of funnel to subscription sign up and beyond, for example, or whatever that brand's main lever is for growing LTV over time. If you, and feel free either of you to jump in, but on the grow side, that's kind of where Maloma comes in. So, I would say that the equivalent to that is sort of retention marketing. What are the 2 or 3 levers that you suggest all of your customers, or most of your customers, depending on their different sort of core businesses, implement to facilitate that growth of their existing customer base?
Rose,
I can jump in. Yeah, I can jump in here. One of the things that we talk about a lot with our clients is the importance of strategic content planning. And that can sound like a little bit general, like what is strategic content planning? So I'll get a little bit more granular here, but it is so important that we have the ability to look monthly and quarterly at what we're pushing out. Specifically, I'll talk about life cycle channels, but we connect it across all of the channels that the client has with our agency, all the services that they have with our agency. But for example, with email and SMS specifically, we can't just be firing out campaigns at random, right? It's not going to make an impact. It's not going to tell that story, or like I said earlier, have a positive impact on moving the subscribers through the customer journey. We need to be able to see, okay, what content themes are we pushing out this month? And how do those connect to the goals that we're trying to accomplish over the quarter and over the course of the whole year? From those content themes, what messages are we building? What channel are we pushing them on? Is it an email campaign? Do we need to work on revamping the automations? Is it on SMS? Is it actually a push notification because the client has an app? And then who are we sending those messages to, right? Like the segmentation piece of all of it is one of the most important things, and something that I can talk about for hours and hours when it comes to lifecycle marketing. Another super, super important lever that we have incorporated to every part of our planning is the segmentation, and making sure that that's a part of the strategy as well, of who we're talking to, and are we hitting them with the right content at the right time based on where they are in the customer journey. So we put a lot of time and energy into that monthly, quarterly planning to make sure that the individual touch points have the amount of impact that is going to allow us to reach the client's goals.
Love that answer. I feel like it's a little bit unique, Mariah, to anything we've heard before when it comes to like retention. So, and it's also very tactical, right? Like merchants who are listening can start to think about that and implement some of this stuff immediately. John, were you going to mention?
Well, no, first of all, I'm so happy that, to say that planning is the biggest lever that we have. First of all, 100% agree is what I would have said as well. The point is that's why we call it lifecycle marketing. It's not just retention. And we have all of these individual levers that fall under that. What we see when we go audit behind other agencies or just brands running themselves, they tend to have relatively high levels of execution in a silo. But the customer experience across each of those individual sets of executions is really bad because there's no planning. And so like Malomo, for example, what do we want to accomplish with those particular touch points? And if you don't understand the customer's journey and how that touch point is influencing the third, fourth, or fifth, you're potentially setting that customer up for a bad experience. And potentially that bad experience or that, how you've calibrated that experience isn't actually in line with your business's objectives. I'll give you a real example. We see oftentimes that people think that subscription is the most important thing for their business. Now, for a lot of our clients, it absolutely is. And we push subscription and we are very, very intricately involved with our client subscription models. However, some products, in my opinion, aren't inherently subscribable. So if they're not, and if your customers are asking you based on their data to do something different, then in our post-purchase series on day 22, 21, we shouldn't be trying to get them to necessarily subscribe. And so I'm just kind of highlighting the fact that there are different time between orders. There are different customer journeys that make sense. And a lot of times we see a good email in a decently set up flow that's just inherently wrong for the business. Yeah. And I think like when we talk about planning, that's really what we mean. And like, if you don't have that established first, how could you possibly deliver the right emails in the right places at the right time? And I would argue in those cases where you don't have a high degree of subscribability for your product, and we can talk through what that really means, then you're better off doing a replenishment series. You're better off figuring out a way to keep people engaged, have those quarterly promos. And when I say promos, they don't have to be discount based, but like there's a lot of things you can do to drive retention that isn't just subscribe. Because if that's not aligned with a really great customer experience, then you're going to struggle. Now, you got a brand like Graza, for example, people really want to subscribe. So our goal is to make that process, as frictionless as possible. And that's a whole different set of strategies. But I think I'm really happy that Rose said planning. I think another big lever is design. It's another one I think people overlook. I think particularly because in the D2C space, we've somehow confused complexity and design, right? And so when I look at a website like Ritual Vitamins, beautiful website, incredibly simple, incredibly effective. See other D2C websites or emails that are like, they're pretty when you first look at them, and then you go, what does this email want me to do? And I think that's a really core tenet that we try to bring into there. And we can quickly get into an account and go, the creative director loves the emails, but no one's clicking the buttons. No one's taking the action that we want to take. So that A/B testing and that design element, I think is probably one of the most powerful levers that you can pull. And so, I would just, maybe you'll pay attention to that to see emails that on the face of them look really beautiful. We actually just audited for a really big footwear company here in Austin. All their emails have men's products, women's products, 3 or 4 extra little sections. And you go through it, and at first you're like, oh, this is a really pretty email because they have a very strong brand. But then you're like, well, is it actually achieving any real goal? And so I think just like with performance marketing, just like with paid media, that balance of brand and creative functionality is incredibly important. And it's something we see that's often overlooked in retention programs and lifecycle marketing programs.
Awesome. A lot to unpack there. And we have a couple minutes. I want to get to the holiday preview if we can, but I do want to sort of go back, John. I think what you mentioned about like the subscribable brands or products, I should say, is really interesting. Like it made me think of a play like that merchants could possibly run if they're not sure, how valuable a subscription program would be to their merchants. Is like you can always test that out by running replenishment campaigns, right? And seeing what the demand for subscription looks like. Like if nobody's buying in your replenishment flows, because then your time frame is probably too far off, and your subscription program based on that timeline that you've rolled out for a replenishment program isn't going to work either, right? Like you're pretty confident that's the case. So you can tweak that replenishment flow based on customer cohorts if you want, get even more granular, and figure out like how valuable, not only how valuable a subscription program would be and how much in demand it is, but also like a whole bunch of campaign tweaks that you kind of identify up front before you go invest a bunch of time and energy into it. Would you
Totally agree? No, I totally agree. I think that's a really good point. We also have like a little checklist internally that helps our clients. I mean, you can get to a lot of these answers with a little bit of common sense, right? And we could break down the different type of product categories. I'll use one example. If you're a protein bar company and you have a package that's 31 protein bars, is my subscribability or is my time between order 1 month? It seemingly could be, but how many assumptions do we have to make to get there? Yes. It's the only snack they're eating. They're eating it every day, yada, yada, yada. So like you start to kind of think about how many assumptions do I need to make in order to come up with this time between order? The more assumptions you have to make, the less likely that time between order is real. And so I would kind of work backwards from the actual use case of the product. And like with subscription, one thing that we see is when I'm doing a sales audit or going through a strategy with a new client, they'll say, oh yeah, we have subscription. Like, well, you downloaded one of a few subscription softwares and you have the widget on your EDP, but you don't have any marketing around it. You don't have a dedicated landing page. You haven't worked it into your lifecycle marketing in a real way. So yes, you have the ability to be subscribed to, but you don't have a subscription program. And for us, we actually see that as a massive opportunity, because if you can get that subscription program, like from a high level, aligned with how customers are actually using your product, then to facilitate that with all of the tools, Malomo, Klaviyo, SMS, loyalty is one we haven't talked about, then you can really move the needle because you understand how people are using your product. And I think like, again, that all ladders back to what Rose said first. The biggest lever we see across 99% of the D2C brands we work with is strategy and planning.
Yeah. Yeah. Awesome. Really good tactical stuff there. Okay, we're running up at time and I do have a hard stop in like 3 minutes. So let's do 2023 holiday preview. One, either like prediction or something that you think will be unique about this year. I think you both have a unique perspective because you start at the top of the funnel and you work all the way through subscription program thoughts and strategies. So Rose, let's start with you and then go to John.
My prediction and also my hope, just as a consumer and a marketer, is that authenticity is going to win. So brands who are speaking honestly with their consumer base, their values are really shining through, and they're not using gimmicks or tricks to try to get consumers in or retain their customers. They're going to win not only this year, but in the long term. And I think that's like the asterisk I want to say, like the long term, really not relying, I'll double down on this, not relying on kind of tricky list building techniques or trying to do these really flashy offers to get these folks into their list or their customer base. The consumers that we're speaking with are smarter than ever. Like, we know when brands are trying to trick us or they're coming off as inauthentic. So assume that consumers are smart, because they are, and the brands that respect that and let their authenticity shine through in the way that they communicate and what they offer, those are the brands that are going to win.
And I feel like I love that answer. I think it goes back to what we're talking about, is like the absolute necessity in driving repeat purchases. Like if you go, if you go do that hacky list building thing and you get a quick bump, like you might have just lost money, right? Like if you didn't pay attention to being authentic throughout the rest of the journey, you might have just lost a ton of money for your brand and, brand equity as well. So I love that answer.
Exactly.
A lot of the themes we talked
Yeah.
about sort of support that answer as well. John?
I've got a couple. SMS. We saw a huge increase in 2022 with how much revenue was driven through SMS through the holiday period. If you're out there, really focus on that. Get those communications in line with what you're doing. Again, go back to planning. That SMS message needs to have the same discount or needs to be segmented to a list that's getting a particular discount. So really pay attention to the nuts and bolts there. We did a whole deck for 2022 trends and predictions. We can send it over. You want to link it in the podcast notes. But one thing that we see, and we've continued to see, particularly with paid media and lifecycle marketing, there's a huge period between Thanksgiving and the end of December where people are still really, really, really primed to buy. That's where I think Malomo comes in. Obviously, one of the big things for us to look at for all of our clients, what is that shipping cutoff date? And if you can really focus in on that and make a big push right before, typically it's like December 19th, that little period of time, 15th through 19th, cost per impressions are down. People aren't doing as much advertising. People aren't promoting their big sales. It's a really great window. And then again, after Christmas, we call it Q5. A lot of people call it Q5. It's a nice little place to get a bump. And we've seen every year that it's a pretty heavy trend. So yeah, leverage Malomo, get your customers the shipping information they need. And I think that period of time is incredibly important.
I love that. Appreciate the shout out too.
It's true. I mean, it really works. Yeah.
We just did a podcast or a webinar with a couple of our partners around like the whole period post Black Friday up until January 1st and talked a lot about some of those themes, John.
Cool.
Love that the tactical advice there. Okay. We did it. We went right up to the hour. This was fantastic. Rose, awesome of you to join us from South Africa, and John, great to finally meet you. Live on the pod.
Yeah, you as well.
Always appreciate the time and excited to get this one out to the listeners.
We appreciate it. I'll send this deck over if you want to include it so your listeners can see it. Mariah, great to meet you. Noah, thanks for having us. We appreciate the hospitality.
Awesome. Thanks, everyone.
Thanks, everyone.
Thank you.
Thank you,
Bye.
Bye.